Suddenly, the sky over Denver had not been clear in weeks. Thick clouds of ash and smoke hung low, drifting slowly like ghosts across the broken skyline. What was once a city of glass towers and busy streets was now a skeleton of twisted metal and silence. No cars moved. No voices called out. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. High above, in a quiet patch of orbit, the Galactic Concord watched. Their ships, sleek silver and humming with power, floated in perfect formation. They had come not as invaders but as judges, and they had already passed sentence. 3 weeks earlier, their fleet had struck without warning. Earth's orbital stations fell first, then the defense grids, then the cities. Not all of them. Just enough. Enough to make a point. Enough to break a spirit. The Conquered believed in order, in control, in the quiet submission of lesser species, and humanity in their eyes was lesser. Now they waited for the response they expected. Fear, begging, surrender. But Earth gave them nothing. No signals, no broadcasts, no cries for help. Just silence. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, inside a bunker built during an older war, Louis Carter wiped grease from his hands and stared at a flickering screen. The room was cold, lit by emergency LEDs that cast long shadows on the concrete walls. Around him, a dozen people moved quietly, checking wires, testing batteries, whispering into headsets. They were tired. They were angry, but they were not broken. Luis was not a soldier. He had been a civilian engineer before the attack, working on deep Earth energy projects. Now he was something else. A planner, a builder, a quiet kind of leader. He didn't give speeches. He fixed things, and right now, Earth needed fixing more than ever. Across the room, Maya Patel adjusted her glasses and tapped a command into a cracked tablet. Her dark hair was tied back, her sleeves rolled up past her elbows. She had once taught astrophysics at a university in Boulder. Now she spent her days tracking Conquered ship movements, analyzing energy signatures and running simulations no one else understood. "They're getting impatient," she said, not looking up. "Their long-range scans keep sweeping the surface. They think we're hiding in caves waiting to starve." Luis walked over, his boots echoing softly. "Let them think that." Maya finally looked at him. "They sent another message. Same as before. Surrender all weapons. Accept quarantine. Submit to oversight. Or else what?" Luis asked, though he already knew. "Or else they'll make the next strike permanent." He nodded. Outside, the world was dead. But down here, under miles of rock and steel, something was still alive. Not hope exactly, not yet, but purpose. For days after the attack, chaos had ruled. People ran. Governments collapsed. The internet went dark. But then slowly the survivors found each other. Not through broadcasts, that was too dangerous, but through old networks, ham radios, coded light signals. Farmers in Nebraska shared food with engineers from Texas. Doctors in Oregon treated burns with supplies from Idaho. And deep in the mountains, Luis and Maya began to gather the pieces of what was left. They weren't planning to fight the Concord head-on. That would be suicide. The aliens had weapons that bent space, shields that laughed at nukes, and ships faster than thought. But they had one weakness: arrogance. They believed Earth was finished, that humanity would crawl into the ruins and die quietly. That was their mistake. Luis turned to a workbench covered in wires, circuit boards, and strange metal coils. In the center sat a sphere no bigger than a basketball, humming faintly. It glowed a soft red, pulsing like a heartbeat. "That's still working?" Maya asked, stepping closer. "It's stable," Luis said. "The resonance field holds. We just need more power sources. We've got 3 fusion cores from the old geothermal plant in Wyoming. They're damaged but usable." "Good. We'll need them." Maya studied the sphere. "You really think this can do what you say?" "I don't think," Luis said. "I know. The planet itself has energy we've never tapped. Not just heat, not just magnetism. Something deeper, something older. If we can sync the cores to the tectonic frequencies, we can create a field that doesn't just hide us, it reveals them." "Reveals what?" "Everything they're hiding. Their ships, their lies, their secrets. The field will force quantum decoherence in their cloaking systems." "Make the invisible visible." Maya let out a slow breath. "That's insane, maybe," Luis said. "But insane is all we've got left." Up above, the Conquered grew restless. Their envoys debated. Some argued for a second strike. Others warned that too much destruction might anger neutral systems. In the end, they chose to wait. Let hunger and fear do the work for them. But down below, in the quiet dark, humanity was not waiting. Derek Boone, a former paramedic from Kansas City, sorted through medical supplies in a side chamber. His hands moved quickly, counting bandages, labeling vials, checking expiration dates. He had lost his entire team in the first hour of the attack. Now he worked alone, but not for himself. For the next person who might need help. For the child in Montana with a fever. For the old man in Utah with a broken leg. He didn't talk much. He just did what needed doing. In another part of the bunker, Nina Ruiz tested a drone no bigger than a hawk. Its wings were made from salvaged solar panels, its eyes from old smartphone cameras. She had been a crop duster pilot before the war, flying low over wheat fields in Nebraska. Now she flew machines through ruined cities, mapping safe routes, spotting conquered scouts, and dropping tiny data chips into hidden drop zones. She smiled as the drone lifted off silently, its motors barely a whisper. "You're a good bird," she murmured. Back in the main chamber, Luis and Maya reviewed their timeline. They had maybe 6 weeks before the Concord lost patience, 6 weeks to finish the project, 6 weeks to turn Earth from a grave into something else. Outside, the ash continued to fall. The wind picked up, howling through empty streets. But deep underground, the hum of the red sphere grew stronger, steady, alive. The Concord thought Earth would mourn quietly. They were wrong. Humanity wasn't mourning. They were building. And soon, very soon, the sky would burn red, not with fire, but with truth. Part 2. The Concord ships drifted in silence above Earth, their silver hulls catching the dim light of a sun filtered through ash. For weeks they had watched the planet below, expecting surrender, collapse, or at least noise. But Earth gave them none of that. Only stillness. Only quiet. It unnerved them more than resistance would have. On the command deck of the lead vessel, Overseer Kyle Vore tapped a clawed finger against his console. His species did not frown, they had no mouths, but his posture tightened with each passing hour. "Scan again," he ordered. Full spectrum. From ionosphere to bedrock, the technician obeyed. Data scrolled across the screens. Nothing unusual. No energy spikes. No weapon signatures. No mass movements. Just the slow, dull pulse of a dying world. "They are broken," said Commander Rellis, standing nearby. "They know better than to fight." Cale did not answer. Something felt wrong. Too quiet. Too clean. Like a trap wrapped in silence. Down on Earth, in the bunker beneath the Rockies, Luis Carter stood before a wall of monitors. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but his hands were steady. Beside him, Maya Patel adjusted a dial on a jury-rigged control panel. Wires snaked across the floor, connecting to 3 large fusion cores humming in the corner. They had been dragged across 5 states, repaired with scrap metal and hope, and now pulsed with a low, steady thrum. "It's time," Maya said. Luis nodded. "Initiate sequence alpha." A technician flipped a switch. Another turned a valve. Deep below their feet, in chambers carved into the Earth's crust, ancient tectonic stresses began to shift. Not violently, just enough. Like plucking a single string on a guitar buried inside a mountain. At first, nothing happened. Then, high above Denver, a single point of red light appeared in the sky. It was small, no bigger than a star. But it pulsed once. Twice. Then it spread. Like ink dropped in water. The red bloomed outward, racing across the upper atmosphere. It wasn't fire. It wasn't plasma. It was something else, something woven from resonance, magnetism, and frequencies no human had ever used before. Within minutes, the entire sky above North America turned scarlet. Alarms blared on every conquered ship. "What is this?" Cale demanded, rising from his seat. "Unknown energy field," the technician shouted. "It's interfering with all sensors. Cloaking systems are failing." On the view screen, the stars behind Earth began to flicker. Then one by one, hidden shapes appeared. Ships that had been cloaked for weeks, parked in geosynchronous orbit, waiting. Now they glowed red, outlined in shimmering light, as if the sky itself had drawn their silhouettes. But it wasn't just ships. Deep in the Concorde's encrypted logs, data began to leak. Not through hacking, not through signals. The Scarlet field reached into their systems through quantum backchannels, forcing hidden truths to surface. On every screen across the fleet, Files opened on their own. Secret orders to mine Earth's core, falsified reports claiming human aggression, plans to sell Earth's water to desert worlds. Kale stared in disbelief. Shut it down, now. But they couldn't. The field wasn't coming from a satellite or a weapon. It was coming from the planet itself, from the ground, the air, the very bones of Earth. And it was growing stronger. Down in the bunker, Nina Ruiz watched the sky through a reinforced viewport. Her drone hovered nearby, recording everything. It's working, she whispered. Derek Boone stood beside her, arms crossed. What is it exactly? It's like truth made visible, Nina said. Everything they tried to hide, their ships, their lies, it's all glowing up there, like the sky is holding up a mirror. Back at the control panel, Maya exhaled slowly. Phase 1 complete. The veil is active. Luis didn't smile. He knew this was only the beginning. The Concord would not accept exposure. They would retaliate. But for now, Earth had the upper hand, not with guns, but with light. Above, the scarlet sky deepened. It spread over oceans, over continents, until the whole planet wore a crimson shroud. From space, Earth no longer looked dead. It looked awake. Watching. On a neutral trade station near Jupiter, a merchant named Joran Tak paused as his comms panel lit up with emergency alerts. He tuned in just as a Concord warship flickered into view on his long-range scope, cloaking disabled, hull marked with symbols that meant quarantine violation. Joran frowned. He'd heard rumors about Earth. Now he saw proof. Within hours, the footage spread, not through official channels, those were still jammed, but through smuggler nets, rebel relays, and old Earth-made satellites the Concord had forgotten about. A farmer on Mars watched the red sky bloom on his cracked tablet. A mechanic on Titan replayed the clip of hidden Concord ships appearing like ghosts. A schoolteacher on a distant moon showed her students how Earth had turned silence into a weapon. The galaxy began to whisper. Back in the bunker, Luis reviewed power levels. We can hold the veil for 48 hours before the cores overheat. Then we'd better make those hours count, Maya said. She opened a new program on her tablet. It was simple, just a data packet, but inside it held everything. Logs of the first attack, names of the lost cities, recordings of children singing before the sky fell, and the full archive of the Concord's hidden crimes. All wrapped in a signal that could ride the veil's frequency. Project Echo is ready, she said. Luis looked at her. Once we send this, there's no going back. We passed going back when they burned Chicago, Maya replied. He nodded. Send it. With a tap, the message launched, not as a radio wave, but as a harmonic ripple through the scarlet field. It didn't travel through space. It traveled through the fabric of near-Earth reality itself, carried on the same energy that painted the sky red. Within minutes, it reached every ship, station, and listening post within 2 light years. The Concord tried to block it. They jammed frequencies, severed relays, even fired warning shots at neutral vessels. But it was too late. The truth was out. On the command deck, Kyle stared at his screen as his own fleet turned against him. 2 ships broke formation. A third powered down its weapons. Messages poured in from home. Demands for explanation, accusations of betrayal, calls for his removal. He turned to Relis. How did they do this? Relis had no answer. No one did, because Earth hadn't fought with fire or steel. It had fought with something the Concord had never considered: unity, ingenuity, and the quiet, stubborn will to be seen. Down below, in the red-lit bunker, people worked without speaking. There was no celebration, not yet. They knew the Concord would not vanish quietly. But for the first time since the attack, they felt something close to hope. Outside, the scarlet sky pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Not a warning, not a threat, just a statement: we are still here, and we are not what you thought we were. Part 3. The message traveled faster than any ship. It moved through data streams, old relay satellites, and even the quiet hum of deep space buoys left behind by long-gone explorers. It carried no weapons, no threats, just truth. And truth, once released, cannot be caged. Across the galaxy, beings who had never heard of Earth now knew its name. They saw the images: children holding hands in a ruined schoolyard, a firefighter carrying an old woman through smoke, the slow collapse of a bridge in Seattle as the Concord's first strike hit. They heard the voices: a teacher singing a lullaby over a dying comms line, a farmer in Iowa saying, "We're still here," before his signal cut out. And they read the files, proof that the Concord had lied, that Earth had never fired first, that the attack was not justice but theft dressed in law. On the ice mining colony of Vexus 9, workers shut down their drills in protest. On the free port of Helios Ring, traders refused to carry Concord cargo. In the halls of the Neutral Assembly, ambassadors demanded an emergency session. For the first time in decades, the Concord's authority cracked. But on Earth, there was no time for pride. Louis Carter stood over a map spread across a metal table, tracing routes with his finger. Dust clung to his shirt and his eyes were heavy, but his voice was clear. "They'll come harder now. They can't let this stand." Maya Patel nodded, her tablet in hand. "Their fleet is regrouping. They've recalled ships from the Outer Rim, and they're jamming all outgoing signals again, but not the Veil. They can't touch the Veil." "Good," Louis said. "Then we keep it burning as long as we can." In a side room, Derek Boone packed medical kits into canvas bags. Each one held bandages, antibiotics, painkillers, and a small solar charger. He didn't speak much, but his hands moved with purpose. He knew what was coming. War wasn't just fought in the sky. It was fought in the streets, in the shelters, in the quiet moments after a bomb fell, and someone had to be ready to help. Outside the bunker, Nina Ruiz stood beside a row of drones lined up like birds on a wire. She checked each one, tightening screws, testing wings, loading tiny memory chips into their bellies. These weren't for spying anymore. They were for sharing. Each drone carried a copy of Project Echo, programmed to fly to hidden resistance points across the continent. Old radio towers, mountain outposts, underground farms. Places the Conquered didn't know existed. "We're not just defending," Nina said to no one in particular. "We're connecting." Back in the main chamber, a young technician named Eli Martinez called out from his station. "Got a signal." From the Pacific Hub. Luis and Maya hurried over. On a flickering screen, a grainy image appeared. A woman with short black hair and a faded lab coat stood in a flooded subway tunnel in what used to be San Francisco. Water lapped at her boots, but her voice was steady. "This is Dr. Lena Cho. Pacific Hub is operational. We've got power from the tidal generators. We received Echo. We're rebroadcasting it through the old emergency network. Also, we found something." She held up a metal case. 3 intact quantum comms relays. Military grade. They survived the blast. Maya's eyes widened. Those could boost the Veil's range by 50%. Luis turned to Eli. "Can we link to them?" "Working on it now," Eli said, fingers flying over his keyboard. Minutes later, a low hum filled the room. The red glow on the monitors deepened. Outside, the scarlet sky pulsed brighter, as if Earth had taken a deeper breath. The Concorde noticed immediately. Their long-range scouts reported strange interference, not just in sensors but in their own ship logs. Private messages between officers began appearing on public channels. Orders to destroy evidence were exposed before they could be carried out. One captain even broadcast his resignation live, saying, "I did not join the Concorde to lie to children." Panic spread through their ranks, but Earth did not gloat. There was no victory dance in the bunker. Only work. Only preparation. Luis walked through the corridors, checking on teams, offering quiet words, fixing a loose wire here, adjusting a vent there. He wasn't a hero in the old sense. He didn't wear a uniform or carry a gun. But people followed him because he never asked them to do something he wouldn't do himself. Maya spent hours calibrating the fusion cores, balancing output against heat buildup. She knew they couldn't keep the Veil active forever, but they didn't need forever. They just needed enough time for the truth to take root, and it was taking root. On a desert moon orbiting a quiet star, a group of exiled scientists received Project Echo. They decoded it, verified it, and sent it onward with their own message. "We stand with Earth." On a forested world where speech was forbidden, rebels painted Earth's symbol, a red circle with a white line through it on government walls. In a space station filled with refugees, a child asked, "Why did they hurt Earth?" And no adult could give a good answer. The galaxy was waking up. Back on Earth, night fell. But the sky stayed red. People in hidden towns stepped outside to look up. Some cried. Some held hands. Some just stood in silence, feeling less alone than they had in weeks. Derek finished packing the last medical kit. He slung it over his shoulder and walked to the hangar where Nina was loading drones into a reinforced van. "You going out?" he asked. "Yeah," she said. "Need to get these to the Midwest Relay. They've got a whole network of storm cellars rigged with solar arrays. Perfect for rebroadcasting." Derek nodded. "I'll ride with you. In case someone's hurt out there." Nina smiled. "You always think of that." "It's what I do." As they drove out of the mountain tunnel in the armored van, the red sky stretched above them like a promise. The road was cracked, the trees were blackened, but life was returning. A deer watched them from a field. A bird called from a broken telephone wire. They weren't saving the world with bombs. They were saving it with messages, with medicine, with machines built from scraps and stubborn hope. And far above, the conquered watched their control slip away, not to an army, but to an idea that even the smallest voice, when joined with others, can change the color of the sky. Part 4. The conquered did not admit fear. Their kind was not built for it. But in the quiet halls of their command ships, something close to dread began to grow. Earth was not falling. It was rising. And the scarlet sky was not fading. It was spreading. Admiral Vex Torren stood on the bridge of the 7th Fleet's flagship, his long fingers gripping the edge of the command console. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with cold fury. He had been sent to end this. To make Earth an example. Instead, Earth had made the conquered look weak. "They think they've won," he said, voice low. "They think truth is enough." His second-in-command, a sharp-eyed officer named Jorah, stepped forward. "The Neutral Assembly has called for a full investigation. 3 member worlds have cut ties with us. Even the Cathari are questioning our actions." "Let them question," Torren said. "We will answer with fire." He turned to the tactical display. A small probe drifted toward Earth, shaped like a medical supply capsule, marked with the universal symbol for humanitarian aid. No one would suspect it, not even the Veil. Inside the probe was a gravity pulse bomb, small, silent, and deadly. It wouldn't destroy cities. It wouldn't kill people. It would collapse the quantum harmonics holding the Veil together. One pulse and the scarlet sky would vanish. Earth would go dark again, and then the real strike would come. "Deploy the probe," Torren ordered. "Cloak it until final approach." "Yes, sir." Down on Earth, Luis Carter felt it before he saw it. A slight tremor in the air. A shift in the hum of the fusion cores. He looked up from his workbench, frowning. "Something's off," he said. Maya Patel was already at her station, scanning the Veil's resonance patterns. "There's a distortion near the Pacific edge. Small, but growing." "Conquered trick?" Luis asked. "Maybe, or a glitch." But Luis didn't believe in glitches anymore. He walked to the main screen and pulled up satellite feeds, what little they had left. Most were dead. But one old weather drone, patched together by Nina weeks ago, still floated near the coast. Its camera was grainy, but it showed a small object descending through the upper atmosphere, wrapped in a soft energy cloak. "They're sneaking something in," Luis said. Maya's fingers flew across her tablet. "It's not a weapon. Not by their usual standards. But the energy signature, it's designed to disrupt quantum fields." "The Veil," Luis said. "They're trying to kill the sky." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Luis turned to Eli. "Get Nina on the line, now." Minutes later, Nina's voice crackled through the speaker. She was somewhere in Nebraska, wind howling in the background. "I'm here." "What's wrong?" "They've sent a probe. Looks like aid. It's a bomb." "A Veil killer?" Nina didn't hesitate. "I've got 2 fast drones nearby. I can intercept." "It's cloaked," Maya warned. "Then I'll fly blind," Nina said. "Just give me coordinates." While Nina raced against time in the sky, Luis and Maya worked below. They couldn't stop the probe with weapons. It was too small, too fast. But maybe they didn't need to destroy it. Maybe they just needed to change the rules. "Remember the mantle surge idea?" Luis asked. Maya's eyes lit up. "You want to trigger it now?" "It's risky. But if we shift the tectonic stress lines under the Pacific, we can create a localized gravity ripple, strong enough to knock the probe off course, maybe even expose it. It could cause earthquakes," Maya said. "We're already living in ruins," Luis replied. "Better a few more cracks than losing the Veil," she nodded. "Do it." Deep beneath the ocean floor, ancient plates groaned as energy from the fusion cores surged into hidden fault lines. It wasn't an explosion. It was a nudge, a whisper in the bones of the planet. Above the Pacific, the water rippled, then heaved. A slow, rolling wave formed, not tall enough to flood, but powerful enough to bend space just slightly. At that exact moment, the Concorde probe dropped its cloak for final approach, and the Veil saw it instantly. The scarlet sky flared bright over the ocean. The probe glowed red, outlined like a ghost in the clouds. Nina's drones, guided by the sudden burst of light, shot toward it like hawks. "Got visual," Nina said, firing data burst. Her drones didn't carry missiles. They carried code. A sharp, focused pulse of information designed to hijack the probe's systems. As they neared, they unleashed it. The probe stuttered. Its course wobbled. Then, instead of arming the bomb, it opened its storage bay, releasing not destruction but supplies. Medicine, water purifiers, nutrient packs. All real, all usable. The Concorde had hidden their weapon inside real aid, and now Earth had turned their own trick against them. On the flagship, Torrens slammed his fist on the console. "How?" Jorah stared at the screen in disbelief. The Veil. It didn't just reveal the probe. It rewrote its function. "The bomb is offline. The aid is active." Torrens' voice was ice. "Then we go in ourselves." He gave the order. The 7th Fleet powered up. Engines flared. Weapons charged. They would break through the Veil with force if they had to. But Earth was ready. As the fleet descended, Luis activated the next phase. Using the Veil as a conduit, Maya sent a signal, not to destroy but to connect. Every drone, every hidden transmitter, every old cell tower still standing lit up with the same frequency. And then the Veil did something new. It didn't just reveal the Concorde's secrets. It spoke to their ships. Inside each vessel, screens flickered. Personal logs opened. Private messages played aloud. A young navigator heard his mother's voice from home, asking if he was proud of what he'd done. An engineer saw footage of a school in Chicago, seconds before it vanished. A medic watched a video of Derek Boone treating a Concorde prisoner after a skirmish, giving him water, cleaning his wounds, saying, "Hate the war, not the person." The Veil didn't attack their systems. It attacked their certainty. Confusion spread through the fleet. Orders were questioned. Weapons hesitated. Nina guided her drones into formation, not to fight, but to broadcast. They beamed Earth's message directly into the fleet's comms. Not anger, not revenge, but a simple question. "Why are you really here?" On the flagship, Torren roared for silence, but it was too late. 2 ships broke off. A 3rd powered down its weapons. The 7th Fleet, once perfect and unified, began to fracture. Down below, Luis watched the sky. The red glow pulsed stronger than ever. Not with rage, with resolve. The Concorde had come to bury Earth, but Earth had turned the grave into a mirror, and now the invaders had to face what they truly were. Part 5. The 7th Fleet did not vanish in fire or thunder. It unraveled in silence. One ship turned away first, its engines dimming as it broke formation. Then another. A 3rd powered down its weapons and opened a public channel, broadcasting a simple message: "We stand down." Within hours, half the fleet had either retreated or declared neutrality. Admiral Torren's flagship remained, hovering like a wounded beast above the scarlet sky, but even his crew grew quiet. Orders went unanswered. Screens stayed dark. The truth had done what no army could. It had made them doubt. On Earth, no one cheered. There was no parade, no grand speech. People simply stepped outside and looked up. The red glow was soft now, like embers in twilight, pulsing gently with the rhythm of a planet that had fought not to conquer, but to be heard. Luis Carter stood on a metal platform built into the side of the mountain, his hands in his pockets. The wind carried the scent of rain and wet stone. Behind him, the bunker hummed with quiet activity. Repairs, planning, the slow work of rebuilding. But for this moment, he just watched the sky. Maya Patel joined him, holding 2 mugs of weak coffee brewed from roasted roots. She handed one to him without a word. They stood together, watching the color shift from deep red to a softer rose, then to the first hints of blue at the edges. "It's fading," she said. "Not gone," Luis replied. "Just resting." They both knew the Veil could be reignited if needed. The cores were stable. The network was stronger than ever. Earth was no longer alone. Messages poured in daily, from free colonies, rebel groups, even former Concorde scientists who had defected. They asked for help. Not weapons, not war. They asked how to build their own Veils. How to speak truth without violence. how to protect their homes the way Earth had. Derek Boone walked past below, leading a small group of medics toward a newly cleared landing zone. They carried supplies, yes, but also seeds, books, and solar panels. Their mission wasn't to heal wounds alone, it was to plant the future. Nina Ruiz landed her van nearby, stepping out with a tired smile. Her drone circled above like loyal birds before settling on the roof. She waved up at Luis and Maya. Midwest Relay is live. They're broadcasting Echo in 6 languages now. Good, Maya said. Nina climbed the stairs to join them. You know, I used to think saving the world meant flying fast and shooting straight. And now? Luis asked. Now I think it means showing up. Every day. Even when you're tired, they all nodded. That was the real victory. Not the retreat of a fleet, but the return of ordinary life. Slow, stubborn, and full of care. In the weeks that followed, Earth began to stitch itself back together. Not as it was, but as it could be. Cities weren't rebuilt the same way. Roads were narrower. Power came from the sun and the wind and the deep heat of the ground. Schools taught not just math and history, but how to listen, how to question, how to build without breaking. And the sky? It returned to blue. But sometimes on quiet nights a faint red shimmer would ripple across the stars. Not a warning, but a memory. A reminder far beyond Earth change spread. The conquered collapsed not with a bang, but with 1,000 quiet resignations. New alliances formed, built on transparency, not control. Neutral worlds opened their ports to Earth envoys. And in hidden corners of the galaxy, small red lights began to glow in the skies of other planets. Fledgling veils. Born from Earth's example. One evening, Luis received a message from a moon orbiting a distant star. It was simple, just a few lines of text. We lit our sky today. Thank you for showing us how. He didn't reply right away. He walked outside and sat on a rock watching the sunset paint the clouds gold and pink. Somewhere in the valley below, children laughed. A radio played an old song. The wind carried the smell of bread baking in a solar oven. Earth had been expected to mourn quietly, to vanish without a sound. Instead, it had turned its grief into a language the stars could understand. Not through force, but through courage. Not through silence, but through a voice that refused to be erased. Maya found him there later. She sat beside him, her shoulder touching his. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Above them, the first stars appeared. And for the first time in a long time, the night felt safe. Not because the danger was gone, but because Earth had learned it could face the dark and still choose to light the sky.